Hi everyone, and welcome to our 5-minute analysis of one of the biggest engineering disasters in fictional history, the case of the Infinity Gauntlet. Featured in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the Infinity Gauntlet is at the crux of many legal and ethical dilemmas. This engineering invention had the ability to wipe out half of the universe's population with just a single snap. But before we get into the issues at hand, let's start at the beginning of the story. There are two major players in this case: Thanos, one of the most powerful villains in the MCU, and Eitri, the king of Nidavellir and creator of Thor's infamous hammer. One day, Thanos approached Eitri and threatened to kill his entire tribe if he did not use his special skill to forge the Infinity Gauntlet. To protect the dwarves, Eitri took the deal. However, Thanos did not hold up his end of the bargain and murdered all 300 dwarves anyway. Unfortunately, 300 was only the beginning, and with the assistance of the Gauntlet, Thanos extinguished half of all life in the universe in a pseudo-utilitarian attempt to restore what he thinks is balance. Let's dive right into the ethics of this case. Eitri had to make a decision. Should he trade the 300 lives of his people for the lives of half the universe? Sounds a lot like the trolley problem to me. Bringing the situation back to the Professional Engineers Act of Ontario, we need to ask ourselves, what would an engineer do? In Section 72.2b and 77.2i deals with the safeguarding of life, and Eitri traded the safety of the universe for the safety of his own people. We also see a violation of Section 72.2c pertaining to the failure to report, since Eitri did not notify anyone of the disastrous situation. Finally, Section 72.2j deals with acting dishonorably, which compels us to question why Eitri was in a position to engineer such a deadly weapon in the first place. Not only did Eitri violate the code of ethics by not prioritizing his duty to public welfare, but he also breached the Professional Misconduct Act, meaning Eitri's actions don't meet the very minimum standard of behavior required by an engineer. In Ontario, this would lead to an investigation and disciplinary action from the Discipline Committee of PEO, which may result in revoking or limiting his license to practice. But let's try not to criticize too much until we can think about what Eitri could have done. One option is that Eitri could refuse to make the gauntlet and take the death sentence. From a utilitarian perspective, which seeks to maximize the most good for the most people, this would be an improvement on the violation of 72.2b. But Thanos could still find another way to harness the power of the stones for his destructive purposes. Another option is for Eitri to cooperate with Thanos, which is what he did, and we all know how that ended. All the aforementioned sections of the Act were violated. Finally, Eitri could have secretly engineered a failsafe on the gauntlet to limit its capacity. This would resolve 72.2b and j, as well as 77.2i, by eliminating the source of destruction without killing anyone. Once Thanos leaves with the gauntlet, Eitri could try to notify the rest of the galaxy about what had happened. The final alternative would have targeted all 4 violations of the Act, making it the option Eitri should have followed. Now it's time to take a look at the legal issues which would come into play if the gauntlet was created in Ontario. Firstly, we need to introduce a new party, the planet of Asgard, who promised to protect Eitri's planet in exchange for powerful weapons. This arrangement meant that Asgard and Nidavellir entered a contractual agreement. The consideration element of the contract was the military power of Asgard and the weapons produced by the dwarves. Both parties had the capability to upkeep the contract as well as a lawful purpose in doing so. This agreement resembles a defense assistance agreement for an entity with no military forces. The contract was breached when Thanos attacked Nidavellir and Asgard failed to protect them. This led to Eitri's tribe being slaughtered and his hands being smelted, which are both direct damages. The consequential damages include Thanos wiping out half the universe, as well as the suffering of those still alive. And so the question rises, who was responsible? In this case of tort, Asgard and Eitri are the defendants and the universe is the plaintiff. Asgard owed a duty of care to protect Eitri, but failed to do so, which led to the creation of the deadliest weapon in the universe. All 3 key elements in the test of tort are met. However, we assume Asgard had a disclaimer absolving them from the responsibility for any engineering inventions made on Nidavellir. This disclaimer overrules the test for tort and relieves Asgard of any liability for the destruction of half the universe. Eitri, on the other hand, was still responsible for his creation and its fatal capabilities. Tort law was established by the case of the snail and the ginger beer and further emphasized by the case of Hedley Byrne, which demonstrated that a clear disclaimer can cancel a party's responsibility. Of course, it would be criminal not to mention the human rights violations at play. Article 3 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights states that everyone has a right to life and security. Many innocent lives were lost in a senseless lottery because of one man's ego. In any court of law, this would lead to serious legal consequences. One can blame Thanos for his evil plans. Eitri for the love of his own people, or Asgard for failing to protect Nidavellir, but the moral of the story is still the same. Do not engineer weapons of mass destruction.